for being here today. As a mother, I have had the privilege to feel life quicken in my womb. As a grandmother, I know the joy of grandchildren. I've gotten to experience endless joy having grandchildren because it's just unconditional love. I've had family members and friends who have yearned to be parents, but were unable to have children of their own. I have had friends and family who have been adopted, and they are very grateful. I have friends and family who have adopted children, and they are very grateful. They have brought such blessings to their family. However, I have become increasingly concerned as of late about the actions taken by my colleagues across the aisle. Washington Democrats refuse to protect babies even after they're born alive after an abortion attempt, and it's so heartbreaking. Our most vulnerable and youngest citizens deserve our utmost protection. Ms. Stuckey, speaking of medical innovation, I think we can all agree that women having access to all health care is important. That being said, not every Planned Parenthood provides comprehensive women's health care. Can you elaborate on the positive steps that the Trump administration has done to not only protect life, but to ensure that women have better access to health care through federally qualified health centers?
Yes, thank you for that question. First, I do want to address an issue that I think that we can all agree on, that the maternal mortality rate in this country, in a developed country, is way too high, and it is. I think the number is 3.3 times higher for African American women than it is for white women, and I fully believe that we need to address that, and I would encourage the Trump administration to address that. I don't understand why the exclusive solution that we discuss when we talk about the maternal mortality rate is abortion. Why is that the only solution that we discuss? Can we not come together and talk about how can we best care for a woman and her child? Why do we have to sacrifice the child for the health of the mother when that is not medically necessary? And so President Trump has been the most pro-life, most, if you want to call it anti-abortion, I'm fine with that too, anti-abortion administration since Ronald Reagan, maybe even more so than Ronald Reagan, with the Mexico City policy, and of course, we know enacting the final rule for Title X that says you have to physically and financially separate your abortion services from the rest of your contraceptive care in order to receive Title X funding. And I heard earlier a comment about this gag rule. Well, it's actually not a gag rule that the Trump administration enacted. It is, you cannot encourage someone to get an abortion, but you can counsel them neutrally. So that's not actually a gag rule. It's not a limit on free speech. President Trump has ensured that these policies can go forth, and of course given states the freedom to protect life inside the womb, and for that I'm very thankful.
You might be familiar with efforts by House Republicans to protect babies who are born alive after an abortion attempt. Many argue that the Born Alive Act is unnecessary because doing so violates existing criminal law. Do you believe federal law should be clarified to ensure babies born alive after a failed abortion should receive critical medical care?
Yes, it needs to be clarified. So this new law the Democrats have tried so hard to blockade simply criminalizes the neglect of an abortion provider to attend to the medical needs of a child who survives an abortion, further recognizes this child's personhood, and says this is the medical treatment that is required for a child outside the womb. We're not even talking inside the womb anymore. And unfortunately, Democrats cannot even get on board with that. There are not any undue burdens, undue regulations. This is not preventing abortion providers from even giving abortions. It's simply saying if a child survives an abortion, attend to that child. It should be really simple. If you really are pro-choice and you're really not pro-abortion, as I've heard many times during this hearing, that should be a no-brainer.
I understand a baby can survive as early as 23 weeks old. Can you elaborate on how age of viability has changed in the recent years and what's made that possible?
Well, as technology and medicine advances, thankfully, hospitals are able to give incredible perinatal care so that a child as young as 21 weeks actually has been known to survive outside of the womb. I mean, that's pretty early in the second trimester. That's only halfway through the pregnancy. At 24 weeks, that is generally accepted as the age of viability. What that means is that that child has a really good chance, if she were to be born prematurely, to live outside the womb, to grow. She would spend some time in NICU, but she would grow up, if everything went well and she was healthy, into a normal functioning child. You wouldn't even be able to look back and tell that the child was premature. So when we're talking about these children as if they're not children, as if they're not babies, we're talking about mere location. I mean, on the one hand, we talk about them as if they are just these parasites to be discarded, as these remains of pregnancy, I think is what I heard the doctor say earlier. And then a second later, when they're outside of the womb, they're all of a sudden babies. Although, unfortunately, as you pointed out and other congresspeople have pointed out, even then, they don't seem to be respected by the pro-abortion side.
Thank you. I yield back.